It's my esteemed pleasure to welcome today to the ATD show floor here at the NovoEd booth. Scott Kinney is CEO and Chairman of NovoEd, and Devonshire, for folks that maybe don't know you as well, can you share a little bit about your role and Devonshire?
Yeah.
You have a unique vantage point on things.
Absolutely. So I joined Devonshire, which is the private investment arm of Fidelity, about 4 years ago with a specific goal in mind, and that was to build a meaningful presence in the workforce development technology market. It's an industry and a mission that I've been passionate about for a decade or so. So I didn't come from the investing side. I had been running companies for about 20 years, mostly technology-enabled B2B services kinds of businesses. But I, for part luck, part intent, ended up in the adult learning world, and I loved it. And my last gig before I joined Devonshire to focus on investing in this space was as president of Capella University. Some people know Capella, some people don't, but it serves a mid-career learner. The average learner is 40 years old, has a bachelor's degree, maybe has a master's degree, but wants to have a PhD or a professional doctorate. It's a very different kind of model, but those kinds of degrees were completely inaccessible to people who were married with kids, who are working full-time, and they're in their communities. And basically academia was telling them, okay, yeah, sure, you can get a PhD. Stop doing all that stuff.
And then you can
move to our little community here and come to class, and you can do this. So obviously, it was a market that was
deeply
underserved. Totally underserved, absolutely. Kind of a long backstory, but those challenges are only getting bigger as technology moves faster. The pandemic has cast an entirely new lens on this, which is you have to do it through some sort of technology. I mean, it might be phone technology, but yeah.
But some form of digital in some fashion.
Yeah, and so all pre-pandemic, of course, I just really believed that we were in the bottom of the first inning of what's going to be a massive period of growth and innovation, and it should be generally good for people, for organizations, and for society. All of that is, I mean, you look around here and there's so much capital going into the space, so much innovation. Kind of chaotic though for the CLOs, the CHROs, the heads of HRIT to make sense of all that. So
it's interesting because I know both you and I just came off of just a scant few weeks ago at ASU GSV, probably the largest gathering of tech investors and emerging ed tech. Explosive amount of interest, not just monetarily, but in trying to solve, not just for mid-career learner, but for workforce populations at large. You have a pretty unique lens as where you sit from the Devonshire standpoint. What are some of those other big challenges that you see out there for all of those large enterprises that we were collectively trying to serve?
Yeah, I think they are facing significant challenges. Learning for large organizations has been, I don't know, somewhere in their top 20 list of priorities for 50 years. And they've almost entirely pursued that through in-person learning. And whether it's a new product rolling out, or if you're in a more regulated industry, you have compliance requirements. Technology over the last 15 years has gotten better and better about making that more efficient. Capturing the data, maybe having an okay engaging experience if it's just you and the computer. But now, with roles changing so quickly, just the challenges of hanging on to talent and finding the higher end, the more difficult to find kinds of jobs, companies have to take on this responsibility. The ones who've outsourced it or given it short shrift, they have to take it on, and they have to manage it through technology, and they're not prepared for that. Their HR, people didn't join HR to be technology integrators.
Agreed.
I mean, in the past. Now they should.
It should be a sort of table stakes in some ways, a degree of digital acumen.
So I think the biggest challenges they're facing are managing complexity, just the barrage of choices and options. You could get by with your LMS for a long time. If you're a large enterprise now, you absolutely have to have that plus. and that means it's complicated. And I do think we're at the dawn of the golden age here, but it's a little messy, right? It's chaotic, and so I think those roles where, you could argue whether or not you put your best manager in the whole company into the chief learning officer, probably not. Now it would not be a crazy thing to do.
And the expectation, I think, from the rest of the boards and C-suite that learning take a much higher role in executing and navigating that change. I think we see that collectively, right? It's not just pushed off to the side and execute where you can execute, but now you're a critical imperative to make us hit our critical business initiatives and our goals. I think that's sort of common across many of the customers that we work with.
I think, the visibility of the impact of doing this well or poorly used to be kind of subdued. It was not front and center for the CEO. Is your L&D organization doing an outstanding job or a good job or a poor job? Not easy to even know what that is, and even if it was really good, the importance of that would get dwarfed by a lot of other things. Now that if you're not doing a good job, you're hearing about it on all the message boards and everything in the company. People under 35 rate the importance of their employer investing in their skills as the number one reason why they would select or stay with an employer. So if you're doing a lousy job, you're not going to recruit or retain top talent. That is a CEO concern, absolutely. And then there are emerging issues like DE&I, which has gone from important to mission critical in the span of just a couple of years.
No doubt.
And the frustration there is the CEOs may put pressure on the CHRO or the head of learning. Okay, I need more understanding, empathy. We have a diverse workforce or we don't have a diverse workforce and we need one. Go fix all those things, and because it matters to me, and the board is telling me my job's on the line. And then they can't move the needle. And so being able at scale to leverage technology to do all this, great opportunity. We've done it with so many other use cases where maybe the lift wasn't as high as this. I know you too have dedicated your career to the power of people just sort of blossoming through the partnership that they have with a mentor, a coach, an instructor, a peer, their manager in a learning environment. And it just needs to happen in a technology supported environment. Not easy to do.
No doubt. I think when we talk about the power of learning together, we don't mean that tongue in cheek. We understand sort of the unbelievably important nature of working with mentors, working with coaches, working with peers, and just getting sort of isolated micro assets and hoping that you scale to that new skill set is probably a non-starter for many. Mm-hmm. I'd love to get your take, Scott, a little bit about, as you look ahead to the future a little bit. I won't ask you to go full Nostradamus out to the year 2080, but a little bit over the horizon. Where do you see, where should be people placing their big bets? This idea of hybrid, is it here to stay? Is that the norm? How do we best support that? What does that mean for L&D? Give us a little bit of your perspective there.
There are some things that I think are reasonably safe predictions about the future, because we have enough data from the past, and we're just looking around the corner. We're not looking 20 years ahead, which is that online learning, digital learning, being a component of a program, if not the entirety of the modality for that program, is absolutely here to stay. It already happened for compliance.
No doubt.
Compliance training went from 0% online to 95% online over the course of 12 years or so. It didn't even take that long. Meanwhile, leadership training, DE&I, those things went from 0 to like 30% or 35%. Now, of course, they're necessarily a lot higher than that. But when you have the opportunity to get people back together again, hopefully soon, it won't be, we're not going to snap all the way back.
Understood.
I mean, I think that is clear. It's a safe prediction, which means that the demand for these kinds of services and capabilities will roughly be double what it was pre-pandemic. I think that's if not a certainty, it's a high likelihood. As you go beyond that, it gets tougher to predict.
No doubt.
But but if you think, so what fuels this demand? It's some of the things don't really change. People's interest in their own career. People have been
deeply interested in
for a long time, and the way organizations sort of harness talent and use talent, those things haven't changed all that much. What does change is that jobs requiring rapid upskilling now make up a lot of the workforce. It used to be just a tiny fraction of it. So I think that means demand will be super high, and I think HR capabilities and learning and development organizations will be completely transformed. They will be strategy and technology organizations
first,
even more than HR. And I think if I was going to make one bold prediction, it will be that the CLOs, and there will be a CLO type role of the future, will be just as likely to report to the CEO or CTO or Chief Strategy Officer as they would the head of HR. Right. Now, big organizations are slow to do any, sort of big bold
major
change like
organizational shifts.
But new roles emerge all the time, and I think we've seen, you and I have, that this role, full-time job of being in charge of HR IT is now a very serious senior role. It didn't even used to be a full-time job just a few years ago.
No doubt. We have a day and a half left at ATD, so maybe we'll give you last word on this sense of maybe a collective call to action that you would ask of all of this community, executives, practitioners, folks serving in the business or in the L&D talent HR functions. What could they be doing more? What would you ask more of them? What was the sort of a final thought on that front, perhaps, Scott, from you?
That's a great question. Hang in there. I think it's a great time to be in learning. Actually, it has been a career, and I've only been in it for the last decade or so. So, but when I talk to people who've been in it for 30 years or for 40 years, didn't get a ton. Never had a lot of power, not a lot of leverage. People are passionate about what they do, and they love what they do, and they get a lot of kudos at sort of the peer level and people they're working with, but otherwise kind of could be frustrating, right? It is now super strategic, really important to organizations. The CEO might ask about it on a regular basis. So it's a great place to be. And so do hang in there. Try to make sense out of a little bit of chaos in terms of how many options are available. Think about the impact you're having on people's lives. And I mean, that's what makes it exciting to be in the space. Once you do it, it's hard to go back.
This is true.
To go do something different.
Something deep, sort of noble about the pursuit, but now the idea of the elevated to a seat at the table, even if it's a hot seat at the table because of the spotlight and scrutiny. I think it's a wonderful closing message to folks. Scott Kinney, absolute pleasure.
Thank
you for your time.